Straw Hut Media.
Hello on the Rockers. On this episode, we remember one of the most iconic, yes, I use that word right, iconic performers, Judy Garland, for her 100th birthday celebration with multiple Grammy and Emmy nominated musical impresario Michael Feinstein before his Garland concert at Carnegie Hall coming up with me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin. It's On the Rocks meets Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
We're back. Buttons and bows and pantyhose on the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. We've been traveling, we've been appearing at Prides, but now we are back. Special shout out to my mom, Mama Rose, who is working hard on getting better from her recent hospital stays. Girl, you got this. Sing out, Louise. Alrighty, East Coast. On the Rocks is coming to New York City, Chelsea Table and Stage for an evening on the Lanai, a celebration of everything Golden Girls with season 1 writer Stan Zimmerman. We look at clips. We hear never heard before stories from behind the scenes. We do sing-alongs. We do little Golden Girls trivia. It's a lot of fun. This is our 4th time doing the show. April 6th at 7 p.m. Go to chelseatableandstage.com for tickets. Will also be available as a live stream to watch wherever you are across the U.S. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at On The Rocks On Air and on Facebook, On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a pride, wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. The show is presented by Straw Hut Media. You can watch and or listen to our now over 300 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, Streaming with Pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 on the East Coast, by the way. Lucky East Coast. Okay, let's get the show on the road. Making his return to On the Rocks, Michael Feinstein, including rubbing elbows and performing with just about every history maker in entertainment, from Liza to Rosemary Clooney to Elaine Stritch to Marvel and Hamlish and more. He's a star all on his own as one of the leading musical entertainers and piano virtuosi of recent decades. He's worked as an educator, archivist, interpreter, and ambassador of the Great American Songbook, and has established the most popular and honored musician as a preeminent force in contemporary music. His dazzling career as a top-selling and critically acclaimed recording artist and a star performer on Broadway and the world's great concert stages have earned him 5 Grammy nominations, 2 Emmy nominations, and acclaim for his NPR series. His live concerts have spanned the globe, including such venues as the White House, Buckingham Palace, the Hollywood Bowl, Carnegie Hall, Sydney Opera House, and the list goes on and on and on. His latest critically acclaimed album, Gershwin Country, features standards in duet with some of the biggest names in country music, from Dolly Parton and Alison Krauss to Brad Paisley and Amy Grant. It is a listen. It tells a story. You think you know these standards? You don't know these standards. It is beautiful. He is touring his latest show, coming to Zankel Hall at Carnegie Hall on Wednesday, March 29th at 7:30 p.m. Get Happy, a celebration of Judy Garland. It's a multimedia show featuring big screen film clips, never before seen photos, rare audio recordings, great music, and of course, good humor as Feinstein explores different segments of Garland's life, from the Gumm Sisters to her trip over the rainbow, her time on TV, and the concert years. You can hear songs like Get Happy, Over the Rainbow, and more. Let's take a look.
The sun is shining, come on, get happy. The Lord is waiting to take your hand. I'm singing in the rain, singing in the rain. I could while away the hours, conferring with the flowers. Good morning, we've danced the whole night through. I feel the sun coming on.
There's that signature voice. Please welcome Michael Feinstein.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. Are you kidding? It's like 2 of my favorites, Michael Feinstein, Judy Garland, for a fantastic celebration. Great reviews, audience reviews. What a special opportunity audience have, but what a special opportunity that you have as well to be able to celebrate this woman in such rare form. Now, we know you have an intimate relationship with the music of the Gershwins, classic Hollywood, classic Broadway. Tonight, we are talking about Judy. Do you remember the first time or the first kind of experience you remember being exposed to Judy Garland and what that was?
Sounds like a contagion.
She is contagious. I tell you, once you got the Judy Garland bug, you are bitten.
Yeah. Do I remember? It was The Wizard of Oz as a kid. That's probably the earliest exposure that most people of my generation had to Judy Garland. When I was in my teens, though, I discovered her Carnegie Hall recording. I was at a friend of my parents' home, and they had a little flexible record there were giveaway records that would come in the mail. They'd be in a magazine. You'd tear them out and you put them on a turntable, put a quarter on top to weight it down. And it was an advertisement, a 5-minute advertisement, vocal, oral rather, of Judy Garland at Carnegie Hall. So I played little snippets of that. And then I found and heard the recording. And other friends of my parents had the recording. So the difference between discovering Judy Garland as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and then finding this mature Judy Garland, that they were the same person as a teenager, took a little figuring out. But I then started to discover her entire career, because when I am fascinated by something, I'll go very deep into it. So I knew about her recording career, the 78s, the early records she made for Decca, and then the LPs she made later, and her death at an early age. I mean, she died right around that time I discovered her, actually.
And what a loss. And, I think fans forget how young she died.
Yeah, she was 47. I was with Liza Minelli. I was staying at her home in New York when she turned 47, and she felt that was like a personal victory. Yeah. And I it's the first time I became aware that the children of parents who have died young have an issue about living past the age that their parents died.
I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, so that was a big victory for her. Now she's lived 30 years longer than her mother.
And what a legacy with Liza all onto her own. It's when we hear people say, "Oh, iconic," the word is so overused. But Judy, it's truly iconic. In your opinion, what made her a truly unique entertainer? What is it uniquely Judy that nobody else have that makes her iconic?
Everybody has something that makes them different, of course. Right. That's why we can hear a voice, a human voice, and it's unlike any other voice. A certain sound of a singer, it is unmistakably recognizable within a moment of hearing their voice. And it's the same thing with the soul. And Judy Garland had an ability to connect with the depths of anyone's soul by virtue of what she came into this physical life with. And she had a very special vibration or energy that affected people in a very deep and personal way. And that is a gift that comes into the body when we're born. I mean, she was precocious and she was loaded with talent and learned very quickly. And everyone said she was the most extraordinary fast learner, because she could pick up anything within a moment or two. Really, it was dazzling. But all of that was something that she came in with. And being a person who believes in reincarnation, I think she must have had many lives where she was involved as a singer, as a performer, and all of these experiences brought her back in a way that put her in that role, that she was going to affect millions of people. Why it had to be a life that also was accompanied by such difficulties, I don't know. I do know, though, that she retained a incredible sense of humor, and everybody always talked about that. Yet the pain was so immense. Why she surrounded herself sometimes with people who just were not good for her. It's sad. But this show that I do focuses on the art, because that's what she wanted people to focus on. And for the most part, the other things didn't interfere with her ability to communicate through her music in a way. And that's why we even talk about her, because of the art. People forget, they look at the tragedy, but it's the art. That's what I love about her. I mean, I don't like hearing recordings where she's not at her best, or where she was doing this or doing that. I mean, it's the perfection of the recordings that she made with Nelson Riddle and with Gordon Jenkins and Mort Lindsay. They're just models of perfection.
You talked about this soul coming through, which I know exactly what you're talking about. Two things I want to talk about. She was a performer from early on, and we're going to talk about her very early years. And some of the songs we know she sang throughout her career. Every time she stepped on stage, there was those 5 songs we had to hear. But that soul that you talk about, even in her less spectacular recordings, the soul comes through, the storytelling comes through. You have that same ability where you have sung some of the songs that you perform many, many times. How does that soul still come through? How did it come through with Judy when she was trained to be a little puppet on stage from a young girl and kind of recite these songs? How did she maintain that soul throughout everything? Nothing was by rote.
Because it was through her art that she found peace. She wasn't finding it in everyday life. But when she was on stage, she had people who adored her. She had lights. She had a place where people were there to see her and to experience the best part of her, the part that mattered the most to her. Even though she would have said love and having a partner, having a man mattered to her. Of course it did. Yet she was safest when she was on stage. I was intrigued. Elaine Stritch one day said, "Don't you get scared when you get up there?" I said, "Scared?" I said, "That's the place I said, I get scared in life, but on stage, you've got everything set up. You've got a band accompanying you. I mean, no."
It's your safe place.
Yeah.
They say that reality TV with the singing competitions is great because it sheds a light on younger generation and younger talent. But what I find, it's all about those 16 bars, or all about, hitting that note and the audience cheering. But I'm finding that there's less and less of what you're talking about in terms of soul singing, storytelling. That part has been taken all out. And, I think it's the reality TV shows that kind of contribute to that.
I agree. And yet there are always young souls that are born that do not conform. And there are a lot of them coming through now. I created the Great American Songbook Foundation. We have an annual high school songbook academy where 40 participants from high schools all over the country come. And these are young souls, some of them as young as 15, who have one way or another discovered this classic music, and they like it and they embrace it and they sing it. They're not necessarily going to be professionals or whatever, but the music means something to them. And anybody who is in touch with their soul part of their being can immediately tell the difference between somebody who's singing notes and somebody who's singing from the depths of their soul, because that's a visceral response. And that's what Judy Garland evoked in people. They knew it was honest.
What is it about her performing that affects you the most?
That affects me the most? Well, I never saw her live. Watching the films of her is always extraordinary, particularly the older movies, because she was such perfection, and musical films wouldn't have been the same without her. In listening to her recordings, I feel such a sense of exhilaration and connection to the words. She makes me listen to the words in a different way. And I was with Liza one day, and we were listening to her mother's recording of Just in Time. I don't know. I think Liza suggested putting it on because I don't play Judy Garland records for her daughter.
I mean, that would be, yeah.
But so Liza must have suggested putting it on for whatever reason. We put it on. And the first chorus of the Garland recording, she sings ad-lib with the piano. Just in time, I found you just in time before you came. Then it goes to the bridge. Now you're here, and now I know just where I'm going. And on that recording, and she recorded it several times from live performances. There's different performances. And she goes, now you're here. And Liza looked at me. She said, "Oh, my God, isn't that wonderful?" Because the ability to take those 3 words, where most people would say, now you're here, and now I know. She went, now you're here. And suddenly there is a lifetime in those 3 words. And that's what she did. She had such innate understanding of what she was singing that it came through in a way that was so filled with depth if you went there with her.
What could all performers learn from her onstage performances?
From her onstage performances? I think one thing is not being afraid to connect with an audience, because she was who she was. Whatever she was feeling, she went out there, and that's what she shared with people when she spoke in between the songs. Whatever she was at, that's where she was at. And people came to her because they knew it was honest. It's just like in anything in life. Politics, you hope for somebody who's honest. Because that way, even if you don't like everything about them or agree with everything, you trust their soul. You know where they're coming from. Well, people always knew where she was coming from. And for entertainers, particularly when I had Feinstein's 54 Below in New York, we'd have a lot of Broadway performers who wanted to do a club act. Some of them were fantastic and some of them were not. Because when you do Broadway, you're trained to do this artifice that reaches the entire
8
house.
shows a week, keep the voice, yep.
Yeah. And so many of these very, very talented voices they have a certain kind of charisma too. They don't know how to connect with an audience though. I played for, 15 years in piano bars. That's where I learned most of what I know about connecting with an audience, before I started really learning anything.
Well, and that is such a difficult job, by the way. I remember in Silver Lake when we had the best piano bar, and it was always such an experience to go.
Yeah.
But that is such a good point. And, every singer wants, I'm going to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and they wait for the audience to be like, ooh.
Well,
and they sing the most vanilla version. It's like, do you understand what this song's about? Do you understand how to connect with this? It's not just like pretty, pretty, pretty. That's not it at all.
No. And if I may,
Yeah, please.
the title of the song is Over the Rainbow.
So there we go. That's why we have the expert here. But these are all the assumptions. Media, fans, we all have these things that we think that we know about Judy because, how myth creates this. What are some myths about Judy that you've learned is like you just want to dispel right now and be like, no, no, no. Or yes, yes, yes.
Well, one of the things, it's not about Judy, but there's the story that when Judy Garland died, that was one of the things that led to the Stonewall uprising.
That's the biggest story out there.
It's not true.
That's what happened.
It's absolutely not true.
She probably loved that she was part of it. Like,
I'm
yes.
sure. I know a guy who is an amazing man who was at the first night of Stonewall, as it turned out, and I said, okay, so tell me, this thing about Judy Garland and her death. I said, was that one of the contributing efforts? He said, let me tell you something. He said the people who went to Stonewall, he said, were the outcasts. They were street people. There were a lot of minorities and people of color. He said it was all the outcasts who hung out there. He said they were all very young. He said they didn't even know who Judy Garland was. I thought, well, that makes sense.
But she did have a lot of young gay audience.
Depends where you come from and
True.
what your life is. And of course, you're right. From The Wizard of Oz alone, no question.
Is it true that she did not really read music?
Oh, she didn't. She didn't read music. I did find a song that she wrote with her then husband, David Rose.
What?
That was her poetry. She wrote poetry. A couple of those things exist. And she probably could have been a great songwriter. But
What's the song about?
It was a love song. It was called Our Love or This Love or something like that. And it's sweet and unmemorable.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she wrote it makes it interesting.
Yeah. Why is she such a gay icon? I would venture to say the gays have really kept her memory alive, and even besides Wizard of Oz.
Mm. Well, partly she was created by gays because her biggest influence was Roger Edens. And Roger Edens was a then closeted gay man who was able to become her composer, lyricist, arranger, father figure, confessor, everything. And he understood who she was. And one could go to the cliche that he understood a certain kind of loneliness or pain because of his own repression. I don't know about that.
That does make sense.
It makes absolute sense. I do know, knowing enough about Roger and people who were close to him and people who were close to her, that they connected in that they both understood the human condition of life. Even he recognized, well, when Judy Garland signed at MGM, she was, 15? And Roger Edens had signed with MGM like 6 weeks earlier. And so they both started there at the same time. And she'd just come off of 10 years of vaudeville. It taught her a lot about life and everything else. And he recognized that this was a little girl, but she was worldly. And she had all of this inside of her. And he found a way to help her to express that in music and in lyrics by writing special material. The Carnegie Hall show is routine by Roger Edens. He helped her put the order together. All that special material, the verses that she sang they were, except for one, I believe, were all written by Roger Edens. So they understood the human condition, the folly, the how you have to laugh at life. And so she was created with a camp instinct because she learned that from Roger. She learned it from Conrad Salinger, who was her orchestrator at MGM, who was very camp. As a matter of fact, he was doing an orchestration of a song for Bing Crosby in the movie High Society. Conrad Salinger orchestrated it, and he was a flaming gay man. He couldn't hide anything. And at one point, there's the strings play this kind of jazzy figure after Crosby sings the first chorus of this song. And he wrote the direction for the orchestra was Sissy Swing. And it says that in the score in the MGM conductor book of High Society.
Michael, if you ever do drag, your drag name has to be Sissy Swing.
No, my drag name is Kim Novaks.
I just snorted.
I just thought that the other day. Thought that was funny. Just I don't know what she think of it,
but she has become such an icon. We love a diva, and unfortunately, we're also addicted to tragedy, which was also part of her life. But she never was really vocal about, oh, I love the gay community. I'm supporting the gay community. Somebody posted something on YouTube. It's like, oh, here she's defending the gay community. And she really wasn't. She was surrounded by gays. Yeah, she was surrounded by gays, but it's not, like.
Here's the other thing to consider. The reason that I think gay men relate to her. First of all, I think not only gay men, gay women, people of sensitivity. People who have sensitivity can see her vulnerability, can see her pain and feel it and relate to it. So I don't think it's only a gay thing. I think that there is in addition to that there is definitely a gay sensibility. When she did Madame Cremeton in the movie The Ziegfeld Follies, that is a total camp number created by Kay Thompson. But the point is that it was camp and she was comfortable around gay men. Because they understood her. They understood her in a way that that maybe heterosexual men couldn't. The heterosexual men supplied another very important need in her life, and so she needed.
And the two never really meshed.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you have to. Also, you don't have to. In Hollywood history, the period in which Judy Garland was performing was a time when. Being gay was something that it truly meant that you could be murdered on a level in California that doesn't exist now because it was complicit with the police and with law enforcement. So just by virtue of feeling who you are, if you reveal too much, you could get mugged or killed. An example of that, which is so horrible, in 1949, there was a nurse, a male nurse, who was at a party in, I think, Long Beach or a private club, and it was raided by the police, and this guy was arrested. A very gentle soul who was a nurse. He was in police custody. They beat him. They murdered him. He died in police custody. And the thing that is not the most horrible, but just incomprehensible, is that the coroner's report on the man's death certificate says justifiable homicide.
Oh, my God.
So that's what was happening in the time that Judy Garland was making those cheery movies at MGM. That's what was happening to gay men, some of whom she worked with at MGM. Conrad Salinger, who did all those glorious orchestrations, those rapturously beautiful strings, he was constantly getting beaten up and going to the hospital and getting arrested. And MGM bailed him out because he was the most important orchestrator, because he was so talented that they had to put up with that shit because they needed him. Otherwise, he would have been killed.
Well, and camp did play such a big part in classic Hollywood. We think camp is another word like iconic that has gotten so muddy. Camp is not parody. Camp is not slapstick. Camp is high art. You know, it's beautiful. It's overblown, but it's done to its fullest hilt in the most dramatic way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain sensibility that I miss because it's just so funny.
Yeah,
it's
smart.
Yeah, well, it's like Marshall Barer wrote. There was a very famous. I don't know what he called himself, T.C. Jones. I guess he didn't call himself a drag performer or an illusionist, whatever. He did drag, and he was fabulously funny. I only like drag when it's funny. You know, I'm shallow that way. And
But that's how drag started. Drag came from where you could entertain a crowd and you could sometimes sing in real life, but be funny. They used to be hosts. They used to, you know, keep the crowd going.
Yeah.
Now it's about who made my outfit. How good is my Instagram picture? That's not drag.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all fine. It's just, you know, it is what it is. You know, but T.C. Jones was in the Ziegfeld Follies of 1956. I think that was what the show was called. No, maybe it was New Faces of 56. But he's in a dress. He's doing drag. And he was doing a takeoff on all of the Hollywood movie stars who, after their careers had faded, would go to Las Vegas and do a nightclub act.
Yes.
So you'd have Shelley Winters, who couldn't sing.
There we go.
There's there we go. TC. So there's Shelley Winters trying to sing a nightclub act when she can't sing. So there's TC Jones doing a takeoff on all these women in the show, and the number's called "She's Got Everything," and it was a whole number about how these gorgeous stars can't do anything on stage, but there they are. So it starts out with TC going, no, I have an ear for music, and it's just screamingly funny, and that's what I love about camp, because it just you know, takes all the piss out of something.
All right, your show, Get Happy, celebrating Judy's 100th birthday year. Such a big event. You are privy to such special material. What was your creative process in putting the show together? How did you know where to start?
I didn't know where to start. And I didn't even want to do a Garland centennial or birthday tribute, because I thought, who am I to do it? I really felt that.
To me, who better? Like you said, so many stars recreate her concerts, even big names, and it's almost like, no, you don't have a right to do that.
I so agree with that, and we don't need to say Rufus Wainwright, but
I didn't. You did.
Yeah. Well, it's just
I didn't understand the purpose. I didn't understand the delivery.
Well, I understand the purpose, but it has nothing to do with Judy Garland.
Thank you.
You know, it's just.
Somebody.
I mean, there's just no point to it. And that was what I was worried about. What could I say about Judy Garland that it just was like, no, leave it alone. It really was, and I'm not being coy here. And I was talking to Liza, and Liza said, you should do something. I said, oh, come on. She said, no. She said, you understand certain things. She said, and I'll help you. And I thought, oh. And I really was resistant to it. So,
I just have to break away. This is one of my favorite pictures. Liza's so full of joy. And what I love is that you are looking at her and you are following her every move with this adoration, but also like, you know where she's going to go.
Sometimes.
I love it. Anyway, okay. Sorry, I love this picture of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, so anyway, I finally got over my fear of doing it, but then putting it together was trying to figure out what the hell do we do, and it's a process, as happens. Sometimes things come quickly, sometimes not, and I figured out that it's got to be about the music, about her art, what it is that made us have adoration for her, and it's all about the music. And it's very rich musically, because it goes back to her earliest years and goes all the way to her end. And it explores the different musical styles. The arrangements are in different styles. And I realized that I could approach it from a musical point of view that would give me the way in. And it's something that really was the key. And then my friend John Fricke helped supply photographs, many of which have never been seen, and Liza and Lorna and Joe, there was family stuff that they supplied in the home movies.
That gives me the chills, to be honest.
Well, it's incredible. So there's a visual element to this show that is dazzling. And a lot of the times people are not looking at me. They're looking at the screen, as they should be, to see these images. So it's a very good exercise in ego for me, because it really is about Judy Garland. It's about her. It's about her legacy. It's not about me. And I want people to like me. I want people to appreciate what I do, absolutely. And yet this is a show that is about her. And the way that we've put it together, it really gives people a different sense of her, because it focuses on the music and the humor. And I think she'd be happy with it. I really do. And that's not something I would have dreamt saying 2 years ago.
Well, I couldn't think of a better messenger, a better vessel to celebrate her life. What are some of the most exciting, never seen or heard before elements from Judy's life that you can't wait to share on stage each night, that you were like, I got to see this, I got to experience this?
The recording I found, the recording of her singing I'll Be Seeing You, that didn't exist anywhere except I have it. She never made a commercial recording of the song I'll Be Seeing You, which was a big wartime hit, Second World War hit. Yeah. No record of her ever singing it. And I found this recording. It's without accompaniment. It's just her voice alone. And I found it at her old house where she had lived 80 years before or 70 years before, and leaned against a wall that was a fake wall, and the wall opened up and there was a stack of home recordings that I was allowed to take home with me. When I put it on a turntable, I discovered it was Judy Garland, because she had a home recording in that home recording machine.
It's like from a movie.
Yeah, it's so freaky that it doesn't sound real.
You've had the most remarkable life, by the way.
These things happen.
To you?
They do. Yes.
I can't even get like a $3 winner scratcher, but
don't say that. Don't say that. Move to Altadena.
I can't imagine what you felt when you played it and you realized what it was.
It was incredible, because...
And I'll Be Seeing is one of the saddest songs.
Yes, it is. And I knew Sammy Fain, who wrote it. I knew the composer of the song. He was a good friend of mine years before. And he would have been thrilled to hear her do it. So it was shocking, because that's her. Yep. And then the next thing I did was look up to see online if there's anything of her ever having sung I'll Be Seeing You, and she never did. So every night I get to accompany her, and I tell the story about how I found the recording. And that is special, because it's a performance of Judy Garland that no one has ever heard before.
Without the music. And so you provide the music. Yeah. That's amazing.
I know. It's like, not only it made that moment on stage possible.
Yeah. And you performing with Judy Garland.
Yes.
So maybe this is the same thing, but what is a song that you perform during the show that affects you the most personally? Not as an entertainer, not for the audience, but for you, that you're like, this song really changes the way that I think.
The song that I love to sing every single time is the verses of If I Only Had a Brain, If I Only Had a Heart, If I Only Had a
We heard a little snippet of it.
Yeah. That is usually a revelation for the audience when they hear the whole story together. It's fun. But for me, it's poignant every time I sing it. I feel a lump. I get a lump in the throat.
Because we think we know the songs from
Yes.
Wizard of Oz. And when we take those lyrics especially, they're heartbreaking, they're sad, they're funny, they're smart. It's all of that. But like you said, it's like we hardly just listen to the words.
Yeah. I mean, the words that the lion sings.
Yeah.
Life is sad, believe me, missy, when you're born to be a sissy without the vim and verve. But I could change my habits, never more be scared of rabbits. If I'm afraid there's no denying, I'm just a dandelion. A fate I don't deserve.
How funny. Hollywood's first gay lion was actually a bear, But the words, I've always found, it's like, people need to really read the words. And when I see productions of Wizard of Oz and it's all this, it's like, this is when we're really seeing the characters in those snippets. Their characters are perfectly explained, and we all have things about us that we're defensive about, or we don't feel great about, we're not confident. And everything is encapsulated in those lyrics. I'm so glad you said that.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about Judy's early life? You know, we all know about her later years. We know she was in vaudeville early, but what did you learn most about her early life? What I was surprised is like what a span it was in vaudeville. I thought she was just a young girl for, you know, a little bit and then that was it. But can you maybe...
It was over 10 years. Over 10 years she was in vaudeville because she started singing when she was 2.5, December of 1924. And they put her in the family act because the parents were performers. Her sisters, older sisters, were performers. So she was in the act. So she there she is. Went around. They went around and
she's so Judy. Like no matter what age, she's those eyes.
Yeah, I mean she knows what's going on, and she learned a lot. And the thing that is interesting to me is that Liza sings songs that her mother taught her, that Judy's parents taught her, that she never sang publicly, but like this counter melody to My Country 'Tis of Thee that Liza's grandparents used to sing in vaudeville. Her mother taught her that. So it's kind of like the vaudeville lineage coming through the kids, and just songs that they would sing in the car and when they were hanging out. And Liza on the Judy Garland TV series in 63, 64 does a routine of Alice Blue Gown that I thought was created for this 63 television show. It turns out it was the same routine that Judy Garland sang in vaudeville, or maybe it was, I think it was vaudeville, the same routine that later was tweaked by Roger Edens. And it was, Judy remembered it, and Roger remembered it, and they assigned it to Liza 30 years later.
That's crazy. I mean, you know, I'm not so sure what I believe, like what happens after we go, but I believe that there's some destiny involved. And I mean, this is certainly part of that. Why do you think her role, we know how many roles she did. I mean, how many performances, and yet it's generation after generation that still remembers her as Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
Well, that's the gateway drug.
And, you know, it's played on TV every year. But why that role specifically? And we know that Over the Rainbow was not going to be part of the actual film. That was one of, but why that performance? And I will tell you, my first experience with Judy that I remember was A Star is Born. And that's just because the environment I grew up, my grandma and her husband, classic Hollywood was all that they knew. So I grew up on watching movies. Those were my play friends growing up. And it was A Star is Born is the first, because what a sad, beautiful film.
It is, yeah. And of course it was cut to ribbons, which is sad. The full version still does not exist. Jack Larson, who played Jimmy Olsen on the Superman TV series in the 50s, was under contract at Warner Brothers in that period, and he said, "Oh, I loved A Star is Born." He said, "I especially love that scene on the beach where they're building their dream house." I said, "That's not in the movie." He said, "I saw it." I said, "Well, when did you see it?" He said, "I saw the preview at the studio." So he saw the long version that was 160 minutes before
that should
they
be
cut
released.
It doesn't exist.
Somebody has to have it.
No, it's gone. It's gone by all accounts, except there's this guy that everyone thinks has it, and it gets into a whole Garland conspiracy. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Not tonight, anyway.
We talked to Rich Little, and Rich Little, one of his first performances was on the Judy Garland show. And Judy wasn't fond of impressionists. She was like, oh no, he does a Mason you have to hear. And she was like, okay. I mean, this is according to him. And so he did Mason, and she was like, why would anybody do Mason? And the fact that he did it so spot on, she's like, okay, come on the show. And then we know his whole career was made.
Yes.
Those are beautiful stories that I just love, love, love.
Yes.
I don't know if you know who Karen Grace is. She's a PR rep. She handled a lot of classic Hollywood stars towards the end of the career. Audrey Hepburn, Doris Day. She has the most beautiful story about Judy Garland. She was so addicted to Judy Garland when she was at CBS Studios that she would go and try to sneak into the audience, not to watch the actual film show, but the rehearsals the night before. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the rehearsals wouldn't start till a little bit later, if they happened at all. And she would go, and the security guard is like, if you can get Judy to sign a permission slip for you to come back, you can do it. And she was like, how am I going to do that? So she kept going every night. until one of the security guards was like, oh. And I guess they had a little yellow brick road painted
Right,
to her
on
trailer.
the set, yeah.
So she knew where to go, and she knocked, and Judy opened the door. So she's like, who's this little kid? Whatever. And she's like, oh, signed it, whatever. And she was able to sit in the audience. And they started at midnight. She remembers specifically that rehearsal started at midnight.
Yeah.
And that changed her whole life.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Henry Mancini's wife, Ginny Mancini, she was a session singer, and she sang on the Judy Garland show. And they would get overtime and overtime and overtime, and they made so much money. And she was there one night for one of the Garland tapings, and it got to be midnight. Yep. And she said, 1 o'clock. She said, I've got to go. And they said, you can't leave. She said, this may mean my job, but I've got 2 children. And then she had 3 children. And she said, I've got to go home. And she left. And she said, I may never work again, but she finally left.
Wow.
So, it went on. It went on. Yeah.
We did talk about Judy's life. There's a tragic part to it. All the movies, so much of the media still focuses on that period of time. Why? Why are we so fascinated with the tragedy of Judy Garland?
As I said earlier, you wouldn't be interested in the tragedy if it weren't for the talent. Because otherwise, why would people be interested in this life of somebody who had all this pain? You'd say it's another sad, broken soul. And people wouldn't look past that. But because she was Judy Garland, then they want to know what is it that made her Judy Garland, and they connect the tragedy to the art and all of that. Well, there is a connection always in every aspect of life. However, she was truly a victim of her circumstance. She became addicted to pills because of the studio. At a
very early age, by the way. It wasn't like going to rehab for 30 days and then, okay, you can't recover for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, she was a victim to circumstance, and considering what she accomplished, it's miraculous because she overcame it. She did what she was supposed to do, and eventually she started to rebel because she was told what to do from her earliest memories, and she just came to feel like she was this thing that was this commodity, and that's why she became unreliable, because it was her way of having power. It's very understandable, and the people who took from her continued to take from her through her life, and that's why she relied so much on her family and on other people whom she knew she could trust. And yet the art is, for the most part, unaffected. I mean, in a negative way, it's unaffected. It's extraordinary. I mean, we know there's things that she would have done had she not been sick, and it would have been wonderful to see her do some of these things. It would have been great to see her in the movie Valley of the Dolls. It would have been great to see her in the movie Harlow as Jean Harlow's mother. I mean, these are roles she would have chewed up and spit out. It would have been so much fun.
I think Valley of the Dolls, maybe it was okay that she wasn't in it because we got what we got. But I mean, seeing her in some of the photo test in Susan Hayward's outfits, and it's like, it's exciting, but that movie was a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. It's interesting. Well, of course, she recorded the one Previn song,
yeah.
And I wish that she had done a lot of other songs, but anyway, it's there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
So, Michael, how do you perform these songs but still make them your own and tell your own story?
I don't, for the most part, I don't do the songs the way she did them. In some cases I do, purposefully, but I'm very conscious of singing them from my place, because if I'm trying to conjure her, then I'm not coming from a place of true emotion. 100%. When I sing the trolley song, I sing the male lyric. With her high starch collar, her high top shoes, she went to find a jolly hour on the trolley and found my heart instead. With my light brown derby and my bright green tie, I was quite the lonesomest of men. I started to yen, so I sing it first person, and it makes it possible for me to sing the song in that way, and so I approach the songs from a different story in my brain. Sometimes, of course, I think of her, I don't sing The Man That Got Away because I don't see any point to it for me. But I do sing a little bit of it leading into another Torch song that was written for her by Ira Gershwin and Harry Warren called There Is No Music. That would have been a perfect Garland Torch song. And so I use the Man That Got Away as kind of a verse to this other song. So I express the same emotion, I go to the same dramatic place that she went to with The Man That Got Away without doing The Man That Got Away, but evokes, you hear a few bars of it. So hopefully the audience feels satiated or satisfied. So I do a lot of things like that evoke as opposed to trying to go right there and compete.
My first professional cabaret I did was 2 hours long. And I thought, oh, The Man Who Got Away, because, or The Man That Got Away. Because, such a bad mistake because I didn't have the experience, number one, and I was trying to be Judy, and it was such a mess. Some drunk, I was like, sing a ballad after I finished it because it was like the 20th ballad in a row. Michael, how do you prepare for a show like this or any one of your performances? If you've ever seen Michael Feinstein live, the presence you bring. So what do you do in a half hour before the show?
Oh, just the usual drugs. No, what do I do? Put on my clothes. I do a meditation routine, a simple one. I don't know if you've heard of Donna Eden, but Donna Eden wrote
Is she Barbara's meditative sister?
She could be. She wrote a book called Energy Medicine. And it's the missing link in medicine these days because it's about treating mind, body, and spirit. And this woman, she is a energy intuitive. She can work on people and heal them and help people to transform. And she evolved a series of exercises we do with breathing, visualization, manipulation, touching parts of our body that clear blocks and open and create clear flow in the body. So I do some of the Donna Eden exercises. There is a chakra balancing exercise that I do. I massage my feet. I always massage my feet before I put on my shoes because it gets the chi and the energy going. And you can find, if you find anywhere on the bottom of your feet an uncomfortable spot, if you massage it, it gets the energy flowing. It's one of the best things anybody can do. If you're working at an office or a desk, take off your shoes and massage your feet. It'll completely change how you feel. So I do that. I do my tea and I do some perfunctory vocal warm-ups, and then I do a visualization that I'm going to reach the people I want to reach. Sometimes I use Orasoma, these pomanders, which are fragrances that are charged with crystals and different energetic things that help me to stay focused. And then I have to protect my energy so it's contained and I'm able to marshal it. Because the Judy Garland show is the hardest show that I've ever done. Vocally, it's incredibly, incredibly hard, and it goes. And when I do one version without a break, and it is extremely taxing. It takes focus, and vocally I have to stay absolutely in shape because some of the hardest singing is at the end, most difficult. And I do because I focus on her energy and focus on telling the story, and then it's easy.
And after the show, we know from your social media, every celebrity comes backstage and all that. And it's like, I just performed a show. So how do you unwind when you're back at your hotel, when you're back at home? How is it that Michael Feinstein unwinds on his own?
That's a very personal question.
But I love it. Some people are like, oh, I have In-N-Out and I eat M&Ms. Some people are like, I take a shower and go to bed. Some people are like, I have to stay up for 5 hours because I have this energy.
It really depends for me where I'm at and what kind of show I've done. If I'm in New York, I have one experience. If I'm in California, I have a different one. If I'm on the road, or I'm going back to a hotel room. Sometimes we'll go out. I'll go out with my compatriots. Sometimes I'll go to a restaurant. Sometimes I'll want to be absolutely quiet. It really varies. When I'm in California, because it's 3 hours earlier here, I always feel like I've gained time. I'll if I'm conducting the Pasadena Pops, we'll have people over and we'll hang out till all hours of the morning. We'll have music and sing and play. And
that still seems so much energy that you're giving, you know?
It's different because it's relaxed. It's there's no price for it.
All right. So I want to talk to you. You have a very close relationship with the Garland legacy, and that's, of course, through your relationship with Liza Minelli. I want to know, because personally, like, this is me being nosy, is how have you balanced your friendship in terms of being so close to this legacy? I know becoming friends with certain celebrities, you just don't ask certain questions, even if you want to. You know, like asking about Judy's life, asking about their time together, asking about the music, sitting and listening to a recording of Judy with her daughter must be one of the most surreal experiences. But how do you balance that friendship? Obviously, your friendship and the honesty and the trust you have in each other comes first. How did you balance it out in the new part of the friendship when you were, first feeling each other out, and then you were playing at the hotel and,
At the beginning, it was very different. Now, Liza and I are really sister and brother. Yeah. I mean, we are so close that I never have a moment of being uncomfortable that she is who she is. However, I am always mindful of who she is because she is extraordinary in so many ways. The beginning, though, it was funny because I knew her father very well because her father, Vincent Minnelli, came to the Gershwin house all the time. I was working for Ira Gershwin. I was 22, 23, something like that.
What was the first time when the door opened and there was Vincent Minnelli?
He was one of many. I mean, Lauren Bacall came over, Comden and Green, Leonard Burns. I mean, you name it. I mean, Ira Gershwin, even though he was sick and he was 80, he still had people who came to visit. Because in the 40s and 50s and 60s, the Gershwin house was where everybody partied. If the porch light was on, if it was 3 a.m. and the porch light was on, you'd go to the house.
Do you know how much I love that? I love that so much.
That was the signal. And Garland was always there singing, and Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall and Oscar Levant. And I mean, you could go down the list. When William Holden came to Hollywood, he stayed with Ira and Leonore Gershwin to make the film Golden Boy. They were like ground zero of a certain group of Hollywood people. And so when I was working for Ira all those years later, there were still vestiges of that where people would stop by and want to see him. And so it was just part of the life at that time. And Vincent came one day and we became friends. And he was sort of fading because he eventually had Alzheimer's. And so he was starting to fade, but there was a lot there. And he had a great sense of humor. Lee Gershwin was a woman who when she loved you beyond all reason. And if she didn't like you, it was the same. And Vincent Minnelli, who was very close to Leonore Gershwin, said, Lee cheers you up when you're feeling good. He said very funny things. He was a cute man. He was domineered by his last wife, Lee Anderson. She was not a cute person in any way. So Liza, when I met her, I felt a certain sense of family with her because It
was kind of a magical night. Did you not sing through the wee hours of the morning?
Yes. Well, it's funny. One time I was with Liza and they said to Liza, "How did you and Michael meet?" And she said, "Well," she turned to me and she said, "Which version should I tell him?" And that's typical Liza. It's like, yeah, which version? Well, I had met her first at the restoration screening of A Star is Born at the Motion Picture Academy because I was involved in that restoration. That's when we first met. Then it was December of, I guess, 83, or was it 84? 83. I was playing parties in Hollywood. I was the guy that everybody hired to play their Christmas party. So I played a Christmas party for Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, the TV show.
Robin Leach.
Robin Leach.
Robin Leach.
Even the garbage is worth millions.
God, I remember that intro.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And I was playing.
That's a voice you don't forget.
No. So Spago, I was playing at the old Spago, which was on Horn Avenue and Sunset, in a place that used to be where Spago was. It used to be the Cafe Gala, which was where all the MGM stars went in the 40s. Cole Porter and Roger Eden. It was kind of a gay haven.
God, it blows my mind.
And so Cafe Gala was often referred to as Cafe Gala. But that's where the first Spago was. And so I was playing at Spago, and that's the first time that I saw Liza after the Motion Picture Academy. And she said, I'll meet you. Meet me later at Nucleus Nuance, which was a restaurant in Melrose. Meet me at 11 o'clock. So I went there, and the maitre d' was very snooty. He said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Well, I'm waiting for Liza Minelli." He said, "Yes, of course you are." And I waited, and she didn't show. And then I played another Christmas party, and she was there. She said, "Meet me at the nuclear." I said, "Yeah, but you didn't show up the last time." She said, "I'll be there. I'll be there." So I went there 11 o'clock. I waited. She didn't show.
This is such an LA story that has not changed, by the way. You'll meet people, well, not you, because, you're famous, but you go to Hollywood and you meet, your dreams are like, oh,
Right.
we're going to hang out. We're going to go to West Hollywood.
Yeah,
we're
we're
going to go
best
to
friends.
Abbey and all that.
Yeah.
And then
Never again.
No.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, she didn't show the second
this
time.
warms my heart, actually.
And then the third time I was playing her father's Christmas party. So it was at Vincent Minnelli's house, and it was a who's who of old Hollywood there. And Liza was there. And at the end of the evening, she sat down next to me and she said, "From now on, we're joined at the hip." And I went, "Yeah, right." And it was true. The next night, she came into the Mondrian where I was working, and she came every night because she was hanging out. She had just come out of Betty Ford.
Exactly who you were.
Well, somehow, but also because the first time I met her, it was at Robert Stack's house, at one of those parties, one of those 3
Robert
times.
Stack. There's a picture of me on Robert Stack's shoulders when he was at the Palm Springs Celebrity Golf Tournament.
I have no comment.
Poor Robert Stack.
Oh, he was a darling man. He was sweet
Yeah.
as can be. He was thrilled when I told him that there were photos of him in the Anne Frank house.
There were?
Yeah, because Anne Frank had pictures of Deanna Durbin all over her wall. She loved Deanna Durbin, and Robert Stack was Deanna Durbin's boyfriend in all those early Universal films made in the late 30s. And so when I played one of his parties, I said, I just saw pictures of you in the Anne Frank house. He said, "What are you talking about?" And I told him that she was a fan of Deanna Durbin in those movies, and he was deeply moved by that. That was a sidebar. But anyway, it was at Robert Stack's house that Liza sat next to me at the piano, and Vincent was there. So Vincent sang Embraceable You, which was his favorite Gershwin song, his favorite song. And then I'd say to Liza, "Do you know this song?" And I sang Boys and Girls Like You and Me, which was cut from Meet Me in St. Louis by Rodgers and Hammerstein. She said, "No." I said, "Do you know this song?" No. And I played all these songs.
You weren't nervous at all?
No, because it was like, I don't know, because of Vincent and the Gershwins. It was just, I met celebrities all the time. And then I was singing a Gershwin song called The Lorelei, and I was singing the bridge, and I went up on the lyric, and I couldn't think of the word, and she was walking through the room, and I said, and she threw the line to me, threw the words,
Again,
and I said,
this is like a scene from a
"Thank
movie."
you," and she said, "You're welcome," and she kept walking, and it was so funny, and then so that's when we really bonded.
Again, I would just have this nervous, I wouldn't want to talk about Judy, but it's there. Do you remember your first conversation about Judy with Liza?
No, I didn't bring it up, but sometimes Liza would tell me things about her family life, so I would just listen. One time we were in a restaurant, and Liza was looking at the menu, and she said, could you describe the chicken and fries? And the waitress said, "Well, it's like fried chicken, fries and fried chicken like your mother used to make." "Well, I don't know about your mother." And Liza said, "For your information, my mother was a very good short order cook." I never forgot that. So it's like, oh yeah, that's Judy Garland's daughter, right?
Well, and when you look at Liza's legacy, being such a star on her own, under that shadow of Judy Garland, the strength it must have taken, the smarts, she truly is her own legacy.
She created herself, with looking at Aznavour and all the other influences in addition to her parents. Yeah, she did it. She makes it clear that being the child of celebrities is not always your ticket to immortality. She understood. She had to prove herself on her own, and she did.
Now, she worked with you putting the show together. What do you think she wants audiences to get most from the show?
She wants people to feel happy when they hear her mother. She wants people to celebrate the singing, to feel joy. She wants people to feel joy, which is just what her mother would have wanted. It's all about joy.
I love this picture, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, that was on the set of The Pirate, 1948. So Liza would have been 2. Yeah. She loves looking at those pictures. I'm always finding them and taking them over to show her, and she just loves them. Because they took so many pictures, on set. They just took pictures. So she's always seeing pictures that she's never seen before. Yeah. It's like, wow, look at that one.
Michael, how do we keep the memory of some of these classic Hollywood icons available to younger generations? Some of my best Hollywood education was going to the video store and seeing Oh, I never saw that Betty Davis. She played twins because I saw, and I would grab, the DVD or the VHS or whatever, and that was it. Now we're being told, stream this, watch this. This is what you should be watching. You have to physically, there's a lot of material out there, but you have to physically seek it out.
Yeah, you can't find classic musicals. Like if I wanted to watch any classic MGM musical, I don't even know where I'd go to watch it. I guess Warner.
TCM used to be the place,
TCM,
but now they're having issues.
I'm talking about on demand. If you go on Netflix or you go on whatever, you search. There's no way to find like a list of classic musicals or a resource. It tells you, so people have to seek them out.
So how do we keep this library of greatness available to our younger generations?
I think it's by example, by social media. I'll send out blasts about this or that from time to time when I think it's significant, and in the music that I sing, and I talk about that era in the context of how it matters today. Because if it doesn't matter today, nobody cares. Yeah. But the whole point is that era is so resonant and is so timely and teaches us so much. Just as Irving Berlin said, I've said it a million times, history makes music and music makes history. We learn from the past, and the greatest artists of today have learned from the artists who came before them, that because show business never changes. Music fundamentally never changes. The way it's manipulated does.
Well, we know Dolly Parton is celebrating such a huge presence right now in media with any generation, like, oh, Dolly, Dolly, Dolly. And this goes back to Gershwin Country.
Yes.
Your album has some of the most contemporary country music stars that are doing their thing, singing these standards.
Yes.
And I think that's definitely a way to inspire the younger generation to learn about this music.
It was a great joy to realize that the Gershwin songs could be interpreted in a different way in Nashville with the Nashville band, and they sound completely organic. If it doesn't work, then it's a bad idea, but it became so organic, and I loved singing with Dolly because she had never sung Love Is Here to Stay. At first she said she didn't know the song, and so I'm not clear about that, but I think the song may have been unfamiliar to her, and someone said, well, how could she not know that song? Well, it's like, I don't know a lot of country standards.
But we also think that we've heard of songs, but we don't actually know them.
Right.
Such as the verses of If I Only Had a Brain.
Yes, it's true. So, whatever. I mean, she's spent her life consumed with music, so it's understandable that maybe she was working on her own career, that she didn't listen to other things at certain times. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. Yeah. People criticize me for not knowing enough contemporary music, and I think, well,
what do you have time?
Well, I mean,
to be fair, a lot of it's not the best.
Yeah, I mean, friends bring to me stuff that they think is good, and I'll listen to it, and I appreciate that. But I have 10,000 square feet of an archive with hundreds of boxes of music that I've never gone through, and I think, well, maybe before I die, I'll get through 5% of this. So when I have a free moment, I go through that stuff because maybe I'll discover something that'll mean something to a succeeding generation. That's exciting.
Or you're going to hire some young newbie that's going to help you catalog it, and he's going to become Feinstein 2.0.
Well, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I can't change karma. So
we're going to wrap up in just a bit, but mental and physical health was such a big theme of Judy's life, especially towards the later years. How do you maintain your mental health and physical health when you are traveling all over, performing every minute, working on the next album? Next seems to me like that's what your mindset is.
Well, first of all, what makes you think I do? I have I do breath work every day. David Elliott breath work, which is pranayama yoga. That I do every single day and is absolutely amazing and wonderful. If you look up David Elliott breathwork online, it's life-changing, especially for people who are artists. It really is a key to unlocking something inside. And there are many ways. That resonates with me, so I do that. I am very conscious of my thoughts, of what I think. If I have a negative thought or something that the ego or the conscious mind is jabbering, I change it. And I look
You do need some ego, though.
Sure, and that's taken care of. I can work on suppressing my ego for the rest of my life, and I don't have to worry about my ego. It's going to be fine. So, yeah, and of course we do. And So it really, for me, as I grow older, is about relaxing. The more I relax, the better I get at everything I do. Everything. On stage, I am so relaxed now, except when I need the energy, whatever. But I mean, it's like, this is what I am. And as we learn that just being who we are from the depth of our soul is all that we came here to be, then it's like, oh, this is okay. And the more we inhabit the role of who we are, the better life gets. It does, on some levels.
Yeah.
It's not without struggle, and life is a shit show. We know that. However, there are ways to find happiness that we have at our call by virtue of how we respond to what happens to us, because we don't have control. But we do have a spirit and a mind and a heart and a soul that was given to us to deal with these things. And also mindfulness of gratitude. If we lose our sense of gratitude, then we're in big trouble. Or I should say, if I do, I'm in big trouble.
You know, we have a number of entertainers that listen to the show, and one of the emails I got is, how do you maintain a healthy relationship while being so busy? That's a whole different bag of tricks.
Well, for me, with Terrence, with whom I've been together 25 years, I was involved with people who were, I was traveling all the time. So as a performer who traveled.
Plus your energy is diverted, you know.
Yes. And then after a show, the energy wants to divert another direction. So I was getting involved with people. Well, people couldn't travel with me. People had lives and jobs. So if somebody was with me, I had to basically support them.
Yeah, that's tough.
Because if they're going to travel with me, if they're going to be with me, how are they going to do that? So when I met Terrence, this was somebody who had businesses and had a life and a job, but was able to travel. So for the first many years of our relationship, we traveled together, and that made that relationship possible. Also, as soon as we met, we started therapy, because I had been involved in many relationships, but not as deeply as I was with him. And so I had to go to a therapist to learn how to respond to another person in an intimate situation. I mean, in communication.
Yeah.
Because he would say something and I would interpret it one way, and she would say, no, you're looking at it this way and that's wrong. What he really means is this, and you're imposing your own judgment on that. And suddenly I came to understand that communication can be very clumsy in the way we relate to people. And the thing that has kept me and Terrence together is having the courage to communicate honestly. So as our lives change and as our lives evolve, we're able to express what we want and what we need in ways that give us both freedom, that cements our relationship, yet makes us feel that we can do anything we want as long as it doesn't hurt another person. So that's a great gift as well.
All right, I have two more questions.
Okay, I'm counting.
Okay. We know you've worked with every big name, but what artists have you worked with that has taught you most about yourself?
Taught me most about myself?
Yeah.
Well, Liza taught me a lot about myself, because she would always say, honey, sing it this way, or do it this way, or look it that way. I mean, she was always encouraging me to go deeper with everything that I did, and I learned tremendously from her. The other person who comes to mind is Rosemary Clooney. Yeah. Because
it still gives me the chills that you developed such a close relationship. I mean, look at this picture. Look at this adoration in this picture.
Yeah. When was that? Where was that? She's in she's not in stage mode, stage dress. And she's big, so it's near the end.
Yeah.
Golly, I don't know.
But the fact that when you listen to her recordings as well, there's that timbre, there's that soul that we talk about.
Yes. She was always my favorite. From the first time I heard her, I thought, oh my God, that whatever that voice was, that thing that went to my soul, that went right to my heart chakra. And I just felt her. And it's really interesting because the relationship that I developed with her was on a certain level very intimate. She had intimate relationships, of course, with her family, and she loved her kids, and nobody could touch that. I had a different relationship with her, and we were able to share things and express things that I didn't share with anybody else. And she loved gossip. I mean,
God, I love that. That makes me even more fabulous.
if you talk to Liza, what's Liza up to? What's Liza doing? What did she do today? And what's Ira doing? What's this one doing? What's that one doing? So I would bring
That's
her
fun.
benign gossip, and she had such heart. She was the biggest hearted person I ever met, and she would always invite people over to dinner at her house, and her kids would roll their eyes like, oh no, who did you invite now? So there used to be a show called Dance Fever with Denny Terrio. And she was on a plane and she meets Denny Terrio, a very nice guy. I haven't met him, but by all accounts, lovely man. And she talked to him and she invited him over for dinner. She went home. She says, I met this very nice man on the plane, Denny Terrio. And they went, Mom, not Denny Terrio. No, it's like, she says, he's a nice person. So, but she just would meet people and invite them over to dinner because that's who she was. It's funny. Her oldest son, Miguel, she had 5 kids. Miguel died, sadly. He died a few years ago, and he was great. He was wonderful. One day I was looking at a TV guide, and it had a capsule review of a movie that Miguel Ferrer starred in. And it said, this is one of those movies where you know that Miguel Ferrer is going to beat up gays. And I cut it out and I sent it to him and I said, Miguel, how could you? And he sent it back to me with a note that said, hey, everybody has to have a hobby. Love, Miguel. So
that's the humor.
Yeah, he was a character. And one day he was on a plane, seated next to Harvey Fierstein. And Harvey Fierstein and I have been, because the closest of our names, Michael Feinstein, Harvey Fierstein, people have come up to me and told me how much they love Torch Song Trilogy.
One of my friends said, oh my God, are you going to ask him about Hairspray? I'm like,
right, yeah, exactly. Right. And Harvey told me he was talking to Gore Vidal one time, and Gore Vidal thought he was talking to me. Gore Vidal. I love your singing. You're great. You're great. And so Miguel is on the plane with Harvey. And says something about, my friend Michael Feinstein, or my mother, and Harvey said, I haven't met Michael. At that point, we hadn't met. And he said, you don't know Michael? And Harvey said, no, doll, we don't all know each other.
But talking about Rosemary Clooney, and we were talking about how Judy can make the lyrics pop. So I had to learn Come On to My House, which is a song I thought, I know that song. You really don't know the song because there's like little things. And I learned, I was like, what a boring song.
Yeah.
But because in my mind, it was Rosemary telling the story of that song. And listening to, I was like, let me listen to some of these other songs. Like, I didn't know she sang that. And it's, again, making the lyrics and the music work because of her, not because of the actual piece.
Yes. Well, she didn't want to sing Come On to My House. As a matter of fact, Mitch Miller, who's head of Columbia A&R.
This is very interesting to me. Like I said, I just had to learn it.
Oh, yeah. Well, she was 23, going on 23, when she was recording at Columbia. They were trying to find a hit record, have her record something that would be a big hit. And she was told she had to sing Come On to My House, and she didn't want to sing it. She said, this is crap. Why am I singing this? It was written for a play called The Circle, William Saroyan. It was... it's an Armenian folk song that he adapted, and it was originally sung by Kay Armen.
Now I'm going to have to research all of this.
Yeah, well, anyway, so she didn't want to sing it, and Mitch Miller said, well, let me put it this way. You sing it. If you don't sing it, you're fired. So she said, okay. So they get to the recording session, and Mitch Miller at that point, he was an Eastman School music graduate, brilliant guy, played the oboe in the Pit of Porgy and Bess in 1935. Brilliant. But he was creating these schlock pop hits that changed the face of music in a negative way. And he wanted a harpsichord on this record. Now, a harpsichord is a Baroque instrument. It's like, why would you want a harpsichord?
But he no personality in an instrument.
But he wanted a harpsichord. So the day that they were to record Come On to My House, they didn't deliver the harpsichord. So they had recording time left over, and Rosemary was there with Stan Freeman, who was a brilliant pianist and later became a good friend of mine. They recorded The Lady's a Tramp and Rosemary singing I'll Be Around, a Torch song that at the age of 23, if you go back and listen to that, you'll hear the depth of what she was feeling at that young age. Because when she said, I didn't know anything at that age, and I played her I'll Be Around, she said, well, I guess I knew some things. But anyway, they, a week later, delivered the harpsichord. She recorded Come On to My House, and it became a huge hit. And she was happy, but she was pissed because she had to sing this thing over and over and over and over and over again. And then they created other songs. Where Will the Dimple Be? On the Babies, Buckle on the Babies, Need to Tell the Baby where the baby's dimple. Then Mambo Italiano, Bacciami, all these songs that meant nothing to her because she wanted to sing songs by Richard Rodgers and Hoagie Carmichael and Duke Ellington. And she was singing, Bacciami and Bacciami. But she did it because it made her a star. She was the first female singer on the cover of Time magazine, and she made movies. And she would have been a big movie star, except she had 5 children in 5 years, and she was pregnant all the time, and they finally released her from her contract.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
You're welcome.
But come on, I'm like, what are these lyrics? And like the note does this, and then it goes here, and it's like, why? It's
she always had different. Every 2 years, she'd have a different arrangement made to keep it fresh.
I was listening because I was like, the version that I had was the chart, and it's like not making sense to me. I'm not enjoying that. In fact, we first cut it from my first draft. I'm like, I'm not enjoying the song. And then we went back to it. It's like, well, we need something a bit lighter.
Yes.
But it was funny because it was like, that doesn't match with. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she had to sing it every show, and it got to the later years. She sang like 2 verses of it, and it was done.
Yeah.
Like, come on, about me, thank you.
All right, final question. What legacy do you want to leave?
I just want to leave goodness. It's absurd to want to be remembered. I mean, it's not absurd, but life moves on very, very quickly, and all that matters is how we make people feel. If we can put some good energy in the world, because we're all part of a continuum. So it's part of putting something good in the world. Past that, I just strive every day to make life better. My early years, I did so many things that I regret, that I just want to try and balance things out in a way that just puts goodness out there, because that's all that matters in the end.
And we did talk about that on your first appearance here. I mean, you were very open about it, which I think is amazing.
Mm.
We're all young, and we all
I mean, we learn,
and the lights, and the celebrity. Yeah,
it's intoxicating, especially in Hollywood. My God,
especially for you. I mean, look who you get to hang out with. I'm like, I get to hang out with this drag queen. That's fun.
Oh, you're not a drag queen. Oh, excuse me.
Okay, you can't sing. Oh, okay, fine. Michael, your show, Carnegie Hall, March 29th, 7:30 p.m.
It's almost sold out. It truly is.
I can imagine. What an amazing experience.
It is, because, of course, thinking of her singing at Carnegie, it's exciting.
It just gives you the chills. Like backstage, everything. It's there.
Yes.
Yeah. Michael, where can people find and follow you?
My website, and then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all social media. I'm even on anti-social media. I mean, so you can find me. I have no idea past that. I just know
Instagram is Michael Feinstein Sings.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Okay.
Because I stalk you every day. I'm like, where is he at now? Whatever. I wanted to come to your North Carolina.
Oh, that was good, because that was with the symphony.
Yeah, and I was like, because I was flying in between. I was like, I could stop there and.
I'll do it again. I mean, the Zankel show is with the combo, but I want to do it again with the symphony, with all those soaring arrangements.
And I think it'd be fun to see you out of town, so to speak. Like not in New York, not in LA, but like in a place like North Carolina. I think it'd be really fun.
It was a fun show. Yeah. It was kind of the best of me.
It's always such a joy to chat with you. I mean, the stories that you have, and you just have this special quality.
Well, thank you. You are a very charming and
I'm just nosy.
Vociferous. No, you are. What's the word? Assiduous. You are an assiduous host.
At least you can say insidious.
Well, that's your personal business.
Thank you so much, Michael Feinstein. And that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here at On the Rocks. Big thank you to our engineer and owner, Tony Sweet, our social media clip editor, Alexis Mendez. Please like, share, subscribe so we continue bringing the show to you for free. Next week, we have Daniel Franzese from Mean Girls and HBO is Looking, who has a new podcast about religion and sexuality. It's going to be very interesting. And his co-host is a TBN ex-evangelist, which I am just fascinated with. Or TBN? The woman with the big hair who used to be on there.
CBN, Christian Broadcast? CBN?
It was something. Yeah.
TBD.
TBT. Well, we're going to see what's going to happen. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy, and if you drink, stay tipsy. See you next week. This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.